Okay, we are live. We're not going to do some fancy intro and all of that. We're going to jump right in and say hello to everybody. Today, obviously, we had an event that happened down in just outside of Fort Worth, Texas, and there was a gunman that entered a church and opened fire, killing one, wounding several others, and a church patron, and we believe it could be he was maybe a hired security or at least part of a security team there at the church. I don't know if they're hired or not, but I think they have been trained maybe as a security team. Opened fire, shot the shooter, and so a good guy with a gun saved. Unfortunately, didn't save everybody. We did lose one, but saved a lot more. That it could have been a lot worse. I want to bring in our good friend Michael from Budget Guns and Gear. What's up, Mike? You doing all right?
Yeah, how's it going? Other than this horrible news today, anyway, right?
Yeah, it's just one of those, and I've been kind of following it throughout the day. I try not to go live right when stuff happens because I want to wait for information to come in, and you know, because we all seen and we've probably all been a part of something where we've kind of gone live, and then it ends up being later on not exactly what we thought it was. So
yeah.
I wanted to wait until some more information came out and try to learn some more. So if you guys aren't aware of what happened, I'm going to read an article real quick. I fell over the Dallas Morning News, and I'm from Dallas, so it's a very, very, very good newspaper, nationally recognized and renowned. But basically, the headline is gunman shoots two at White Settlement Church. White Settlement is not a racist thing. That's the name of the town, guys, okay? White Settlement Church before churchgoers return fire, killing him, officials say. This was updated at 4:40 this afternoon, which is about an hour and a half ago. But a gunman opened fire Sunday morning at church in White Settlement, killing one person, critically wounding another before churchgoers fatally shot him, authorities say. Happened about 8 miles west of Fort Worth at 10 o'clock this morning at the West Freeway Church of Christ. Like I said, this is just outside of Fort Worth, the DFW Metroplex. Two of the wounded people, one of whom was a gunman, died at the hospital. Paramedics resuscitated the third person who went into cardiac arrest on the way to the hospital, but that person has remained in critical condition. And as of right now, I have not seen an update. Two other people were released from the scene for minor injuries. And the interesting thing about this one, Mike, I want to bring you in on this one. I don't know if you've seen it or not, but the interesting thing is the church was live streaming their service on YouTube. So this was,
I did not know that.
Yeah, this is there's the video out there, and it was actually and I don't know, I haven't checked it out, but I don't know if they've since taken it down or not. But this was caught live on YouTube. This was interesting enough. I wonder. I'm not going to go there because that's going to be very, very poor taste. But
yeah, I thought about going exactly where you were about to go and decided not to. It would be in poor taste. Good man. Good man.
Yeah, and tax out there, Kevin says, and I did want to say this as well. It's terrible, and I want to send a shout out to our good friend Yuta Raymer, the Pew Pew Jew out there, who's obviously Jewish. But Kevin out there says, just a position to the story from where New York, where a maniac went into the last night of Hanukkah and stabbed many at the synagogue. I mean, and it's like, I don't understand. Maybe you can help me here, Mike. I don't understand. When did a place of worship become where evil? I know that history has shown with burnings and all of that, but that was something different. This is not a racism thing. This just seems to be evil. And I don't understand. And I guess we're not supposed to understand because our minds don't work that way. But I mean, is it me or is the church thing? This is deeply, disturbing.
Well, they're perceived as being soft targets. Luckily, in this case, it wasn't.
Yeah. I want to say, don't get me started. A long time ago, there was a shooting in a church in Texas, and I think the state at that point allowed churches to have security teams and licensed concealed carriers could carry on church premises. And we saw what happened a couple years ago at a church there in Texas when a guy across the street opened fire on the shooter. But it's just it's sickening.
You're talking the Sutherland Springs incident with
Sutherland
Stephen
Springs,
Wolford.
yeah.
Stopped it. Yeah.
Pete out there, he's from Texas as well. He said first shot to last shot, 4 seconds. And it's true. The guy, from where I saw of the video, was a shotgun. The guy comes in, shoots a shotgun, and the guy stands up from one of the pews. One shot for the armed citizen, the Good Samaritan. One shot took him down. And I mean, like I said, it was nuts to watch the video. And like I said, it was live stream. And so, that's crazy in itself. This was kind of one of the first ones that we've seen as far as a church where we actually see what happens instead of going by what people say. Yeah, Stephen Wilford, that's exactly right out there.
Well, it goes to show what we've been saying and they've been denying, that and I'm not going to say because I don't ever believe that there is a single solution to any problem, but one of the components of the solution to this problem of mass shootings is exactly this: allowing people the ability to be responsible for their own safety.
Yep.
Period. I went and saw a movie today, and we won't talk about that, but I bring it up to say that while I was in the theater, I had to disarm because here in Ohio, if the property owner, the business owner posts a sign that says you can't carry in there, it's a felony to carry in there. And being a law-abiding citizen, I was forced to disarm. And had someone chosen that particular moment to do something terrible, there would have been no recourse for me. Compare that to the situation in the Texas church where the bad guy was stopped immediately because someone was there who could defend themselves. That goes to show, that part of the solution, at least, is allowing people the ability to defend themselves.
Yeah. Kevin brings up a point, and I know Pete's maybe took a little offense to this. I don't. He says lots to be learned from the video. There is. This is something that is new. It says for the amount of people that drew and flagged and did not have ID, yes, it could have gone much, much worse. Luckily, 4 seconds is all it took. Southpaw out there says that church security teams must verify with church that the team is covered on the liability policy in case something goes down, especially a farm. Absolutely. But Kevin is right to a certain extent. And I'm going to put it this way. We have them here, I actually train a couple of churches for tactics and all of that. And so there are teams here in my hometown at churches that are there as well. And it's not shady, in my opinion. I think he's right, because what it is these people are trained, and most of the time they're either maybe have some military background or law enforcement or something, but mostly they're just good Samaritans that want to make sure that their church they're safe. And so they train for different things, but most of these people have probably never been in a shootout before. And until they get in the situation of this, they don't know how they're going to react. So yes, if you watch the video, yes, there were multiple. There was probably ended up being 3 or 4 or 5 people drawn. Once the initial shot was down, the shooter was down. There was other people, they were kind of surrounding him and taking their post, getting their fields of fire and all of that. And yes, were there people that got flagged by that? Absolutely there was. Is there something to be learned from that? Absolutely. And we're not condemning these people for flagging. We're not condemning any of that. At least I'm not. But they're going to be able. The good thing about this is they have video. So this team or other teams around the country can now take this video and utilize it for educational and training purposes. Is okay, this it ended properly, but was everything done the way it should be done? So I think that as bad as this is, as far as the training and the utilization of security teams at churches, this could be one of the first, I don't know, videos or something that could help more teams down the line. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think that anytime anything like this happens and we have video, I think it behooves all of us to try to learn from it. You know, any of us who've decided that we're going to be responsible for our safety and the safety of those around us, we need to learn from things like this. We need to learn from any source that we can learn from, but particularly real world examples where this happened. You know, it's all well and good to talk hypotheticals, but it's even better to talk, okay, this happened. What can we do better? That's the same. I know we do it in corrections. I know you in the military, you did it. The concept of the after action report, where, okay, this is what happened. Here's what we could have done a little better. Here's what maybe we need to be prepared for in the future, et cetera, et cetera. You know, use the video we have of incidents like this as a resource to learn from it so that we can be better prepared for tomorrow and the next day and the next day. Absolutely right.
Just plinking out there, it says flagged is one thing, shot is another. Having a gun pointed at you is just part of the chaos as long as you don't get shot. And that's absolutely, once again, I'm not condemning anybody for the flagging. Obviously, we don't want that. But just like he said, flagging is part of the chaos. And unless these people who are part of the security team have actually been in a gunfight before, they're freaking out. They're going through emotions that they've never felt. You can be trained all you want, but you never know how you're going to react. And I want to say that I'm happy that these people reacted the way they did. I am terrified and frightened that we have to use these security teams, that these teams are necessary. But it is nice to know that whatever training that these guys did, whether as a group or on their own, they de-escalated a situation and minimized the horror that could have happened. We could have been a lot worse. And so, yes, it's just one of those things where, it's part of the chaos. And once again, you take this video and you go learn from it. Yep. And every other security team across the country can take this video and learn from it. And I hate to say this, but this video is going to be used for years, I think. Absolute years. Go ahead.
Yes, it is. It absolutely is going to be used for years. It's going to be used for years as a training tool. It's also going to be used, hate to put it this way, but it's going to be used for propaganda.
It is.
You know, by our side, by our guys. I know that I always decried how the liberals and the anti-gunners won't let a tragedy go to waste and they're willing to exploit it, but our side isn't going to be above it either when it comes to things like this, because it is such a good illustration of the principle that good guy with a gun can stop a bad guy with a gun. It's going to be used for years in that, but it's, you know, I prefer to use it in a more positive light, in the sense of, here's some lessons learned. Let's, you know, let's take what we can from this and try and improve our performance later. But it'll be used.
It did. Let's see here. Who was that just said that up there? Oh, Single Shot says, was this a drill? Unfortunately, negative, my man. This is real. It was not a drill. It happened. Like I said, the craziest thing about this is, and it's nothing new. I know several of the churches around here live stream the services, either on Facebook or YouTube. This was caught live on YouTube, and it was very live, very real. I have not checked if they've taken the video down. I'm assuming that probably someone has, not because of handling firearms or anything like that. I think they're probably, because it's an ongoing investigation, they're probably going to be utilizing this as evidence, and so to protect identities, because they haven't released identities of the shooter, of the victims, or anyone as far as I've seen. And that might be one of those things where they're not going to use a video until they do that, maybe.
On the other hand, once it's out there, it's out there. And
it is,
even though the original source may be down, someone else has it up, guaranteed.
Yeah. You know, it's let's see. Star says, I'll also say the church members did an amazing job to duck and covering and slowly moving out of the pews, not running out crazy. Yeah, there were a lot of screams. Obviously, there's a lot of screaming. I mean, duh. You know, it's a horrific event and it's happening right then and there. But they didn't freak out. What I was happy to see and you might have a different take to this, and I'll let you come in on this here in a second, Mike. But what I was glad to see is in the video, no one bull rushed the shooter. Like
Yeah.
no one tried to be that hero, unarmed hero that just rushes him, because that could have been bad. I don't know if, and I don't know anything about this church. Obviously, they have a security team. I don't know if the parishioners have been told, if you are going to be at a church service when we have security and something does happen, just get down, don't rush them. I don't know if they've been told that or not, but there wasn't anyone that rushed them, and I'm very happy about that.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up. You would almost have to. I think smart money would be that if you have a security team in place and these are the designated people, hold drills once in a while with your congregation so that everybody knows what to do if and when this happens. You know, duck and cover, get down between the pews, slowly move out of the way, do it in an orderly fashion. Let the people that have let the designated people handle it so that you're not in their way trying to be the hero. I don't know. It seems that would be the smart way to go, but I don't know if that was the case here, even though it sure looked like it. But it's hard to say. I guess someone's going to have to ask them that.
Yeah, I'm going to put the link out to this article. Like I said, it was updated at 4:40 this afternoon Central Time. Put the link out there. For some people who are watching football or whatever, they're hearing about this. Obviously, Single Shot's hearing about this for the first time. He said, how bad? 2 dead, including the shooter, 1 critically injured. There is no update as to whether that person is still living or not.
I haven't been plugged into the news today. As I said, I've been out doing other stuff. Has this been all over the news yet?
As far as I know, I started seeing memes on Instagram, and a couple people tagged me in an Instagram post, and that was the first I heard it. Because here's a strange thing: I quit watching the news October 1st of 2018. I literally haven't. Hey, Rob's in here. Hey, what's up, Rob? How you doing, man?
I don't know. I'm like sideways, upside down.
Yeah, you're good. Well, I know that I saw something on Facebook, I guess, that Tyler Pincus was not at the church, but they have been staying around that area or something like that recently. Do you have any information that maybe we haven't heard about yet?
I don't know. If she was there, like I said, 5 miles away from where it happened this morning, not involved at all. No one that,
right.
With my ex's family, I don't think anybody was involved at all directly. But the thing that I did, and I just posted about it. This is definitely one of those. Or I've had a crazy busy day, a lot going on, wasn't able to dig into the details, and didn't want to post until I had some level of something to say. Right, not just there. Oh, look, something happened. And what concerns me right now is, of course, as we do, we like to celebrate anything that we can celebrate as a win. We have a narrative that feels good to us as gun owners and CCW proponents and all that. What it looks like here is not what I saw a lot of the headlines saying all day long. Armed LTC holder or armed churchgoer stops the spree killing. That's not what it looks like at all. To me,
it looks like
seeing
a security team.
Yeah, having seen the videos and now heard a couple different versions of this story where they talked to this guy, he was walked out or he left on his own. He came back in wearing the big long coat. He was confronted again. Very clearly in at least one of the videos that's out there, you can see that a security guy is talking to him. There's another parishioner, and it looks like a church official, but not a security guy, standing there also, who ends up getting shot. And then there's an escalation, right? And this is my concern. So this is the question is, okay, what happened between, hey, that guy doesn't look right, or that guy doesn't belong here? Many of these church shootings are people who knew the church or who are related to someone or know someone at the church. So is this guy a guy that was on a list? Is the guy a guy who, maybe wasn't supposed to be there, had a no trespass, had a restraining order from somebody in the church? All these are questions that are going through my mind, because clearly he was engaged verbally by the security team. Then somebody draws a gun. Then he pulls his gun out. Then the shooting starts, and then they put the guy down. And, for 6 hours, all I heard about was that last 2 seconds, right? Armed churchgoer puts down spree killer. Well, there's a whole bunch of stuff that happened before that. And I think we really need to learn from all of that too. surely good guys with guns, got it, check the box. This is a good guy with gun situation, but what happened to get us there is still very, very unclear, and it's disingenuous for us as the firearms community to suggest that there was just some guy, singing from the hymnal, and all of a sudden shots rang out. He dropped the hymn book and shot somebody. Like, that's not what happened.
Right. No, everything that I've seen is it was a security team. And if you've seen the video, right after that one guy takes a shot and drops a shooter, there's like 3 or 4 that look like they're in position, looking at fields of fire. I mean, they're definitely a team there working together and all that. So I did see a report that maybe they did have, or they expected something from this guy. They've had problems with this person before. And what we're talking about is I've got a couple other things I want to get into, but what we've been talking about with budget here is, this was caught live on YouTube. They were streaming this service live, and as gruesome as that sounds, this could be something that could be utilized for a long time in a positive way for other security teams to utilize for training processes. I mean, are you aware of something that's been caught live like this that actually could help down the road?
I mean, there are a bunch of events. I don't know that there's been a church event.
Right. A church. Yeah.
And I think this is such a growing industry over the last 5 to 10 years where and I've done some stuff where someone says, hey, can you do a class for our church? Sure, I'll come in and do it. Other people have now, they've done it. They've gotten great reputations around it. They've gone out and gone, all over the nation, developing curriculum around church security and church teams. And I think what's really important to understand here is that those people are the ones that I think really need to get their hands on this footage. Yes. They need to be talking to this team. They need to be teaching those lessons. I can look at it as a personal defense guy, as a defensive guy, from the military, law enforcement, security, private security, technically. I can look at it with all those eyes and come up with some ideas. But there are people who've kind of devoted their life to this. The way I deal with extreme close quarters, armed defense, these guys deal with church security teams. And there's certainly lessons to be learned there. But I mean, you can look at it and certainly see those guys posturing and positioning and putting themselves in those positions even before the shots are fired. And that's why you see such a fast response. Unfortunately, for one security guard, it was not a fast enough response. Right. And I'm unclear. I'm going to watch the videos again. I'm sure there's going to be people dissecting these videos to death. But it almost looks like there's a gun that gets drawn and then put down in an extended kind of non-ready position, but the gun came out, and then that escalates, and then boom, shots are fired, and then another guy puts the guy down.
Yeah, for me, for the video, I've only watched it twice because, like I said, I'm the same way. I heard about this through Instagram tags. Someone tagged me on Instagram about this, and so it was a couple hours ago. And I guess, like you said, I didn't want to just jump on because I wanted to figure out what's going on. Let's hear what's been said. So I waited as long as I could. I wanted to at least get it out there and talk about it because I saw the live video. And for me, that changes the whole dynamic of being able to utilize this video for training purposes down the road. But I think you're right.
We've been doing it with law enforcement. We've been doing dash cameras for 20 years.
Yeah. But this is kind of the first one in a church setting where, it was, you have a room full of bystanders. And someone asked a question. It was nice to see the bystanders all got down. We've all seen footage of where someone tries to be a hero and just kind of bull rushes the shooter, and it turns out badly. That didn't happen. So I wonder if maybe they were told not to, if someone ever came into that church, the training team. I don't know. But it was interesting. We'll bring G in. G, how you doing, man?
I'm doing all right. Thanks for the link. I just saw that you're doing a show. I have no idea what's going on, though. Is this something that happened today, or is this?
Yeah, it was this morning about 10 o'clock Central Time. There was an incident in a church outside of Fort Worth, Texas, that a shooter goes in and fires, hits 2 people, 1 dies. And then what seemingly says is an armed citizen draws from the church and shoots and kills a shooter. It turns out that we believe that this is church security, which is fine. It is fine. I want to bring this. I want to bring this to the room because I've been contacted through a Facebook group on gun control debate. So I'm in this group, and it's both sides of the aisle. Someone tagged me in a comment that said something about oh, this doesn't count because it's not an armed citizen. It was a paid security. And I just simply replied and I said, first of all, if this is how you're going to, justify in your mind that this is something that's bad, this is, I said, it doesn't matter if they were paid or not. It was a citizen who was armed in a church. The good guy with a gun defeats a bad guy with a gun. Regardless if he was a paid security or not, or just a volunteer security, it was a citizen that was armed inside of a church that took down evil, that stopped something that could have been dramatically worse than what it was. Not saying that we're okay with one or two people dying at all. I'm saying is it could have been much, much worse. So my question to you is, to you guys, I'll start with budget. Does it matter to you at all that this was a security guard in the grand scheme of things?
Not a bit. I tend to believe, and this is just my opinion, that if a establishment, whether it be a business or a church or any other venue, is going to prevent average Joe from being responsible for their own security, then they should assume that responsibility. So it doesn't matter to me if it was a volunteer security. It doesn't matter to me if it was, a regular parishioner. It doesn't matter to me if it was paid security. It doesn't matter to me. The fact is, the guy prevented more people from dying, and that is the bottom line to me. I don't care who did it. Somebody was there and able to do it. And that, I think, as I said earlier, is part of the answer to this. Someone needs to be there assuming that responsibility.
I tend to agree. I mean, it's one of those things where I hate the fact that now we have to have security teams in churches. It doesn't seem right to me to have to do that. But the reality is we do. And we have a couple of churches here in my hometown that I've trained and shot with and worked on some tactical maneuvering with and all that, and some different ideas of what they can do with a team. And it's something that's real. And it's not that they're a hired security team that's outside the church they're coming in. There's people that go to this church that happen to have concealed carry licenses that want to do something about this. So for someone to sit there and say it's a security team, it's not like a SWAT team that's undercover. These are normal people that are going to that church anyways, that just have taken that responsibility to sit there and say, look, I'll do this if nobody wants to. I'll do this and we'll make sure no one gets hurt. So, I know I'll bring you in, and you've done a lot of training. We all know that it takes a certain mindset of someone who's actually willing to step up in a situation like that. When you hear it is a security team, a paid security. Is that them just trying to minimize what happened today? Is that what they're trying to do, or what?
Sure. It's the other side of the same coin, right? It's the same coin on our side that's running around saying and acting like a random churchgoer was, again, embedded in what the preacher was saying, and then a shot rings out and they magically draw their gun and drop the bad guy. That's not what happened. At the same time, it's disingenuous to suggest that there was SWAT team commandos in Overwatch with long guns, ready to drop the first terrorist that showed up.
Well, these guys weren't kitted up.
Well, so once again, I mean, it's the same old story, right? It's the extremism. It's people trying to put this event into their narrative, as opposed to just objectively sitting back and saying, okay, here's some people that raised their hand apparently and said, I will do this, whether it's a job or a volunteer service. A church ministry is what it's called a lot in a lot of churches, is the security ministry in the churches. That part doesn't matter to me for either side's agenda. What matters to me is that we learn the lessons we can learn from it. And I'm a big fan of freedom isn't safe. So if we're going to say everybody can carry a gun, we have to recognize that could create danger, right? And those people should be trained, and those people should be educated, and those people should be responsible. At the same time, if we say, you know what, we're not going to let you carry a gun here because we have the freedom to run our church the way we want to, and our church is going to be a gun-free zone, then, well, that's not safe in a completely different way, right? So should they provide security? Should they allow security? Should they pay security? I think those are questions that those parishioners have to answer, right? Like the people that are saying they want to go to that church, cool. Like these are all questions that you as a community have to come to answers to. What we need to do is from outside of that community, try to figure out what they were doing and then decide whether or not it worked. Because on the one hand, it's real easy to say, well, yeah, he could have killed 20 people. except maybe he could have killed 0 people if it was even more effective security, right? Maybe if there were metal detectors. I mean, there's all kinds of ways this could have gone differently, better or worse. What we need to do as human beings is learn as much as we can and then come to conclusions about what actually happened, not try to take what actually happened and cram it into our preferred, agenda fulfilling narrative.
Yeah. I want to bring up a comment. I'm bring G in on this one too. I'll bring everybody if they want to. You guys can talk. Just, you guys you've been doing this long enough. You're not going to step on anybody's toes, but Jacob S out there says shoot the hands or knees if possible. Now I want to preface this by saying Jacob is a 22-year-old who just started showing up to a lot of live chats. He's literally brand new to the gun community. I don't even think he owns a firearm, doesn't have training. He's a 22-year-old that is interested in learning more about it. And so I have no problem with him making a statement, but I want to say, Jacob, respectfully, until you fire a gun and you have training to understand what you have when you're in that kind of chaos, accelerated heart rate, having to control your breathing, you're looking to aim at the largest mass that you can. If you're trying to shoot an arm or a knee and you miss, what's behind that? Who's behind that? Chances are, if you trying to hit someone's knee, are about 1%, maybe even less than that, honestly, even for the best shots out there. So
every
you want
to fire has consequences attached to it.
Correct. So you want to aim for the largest mass that you can. That's why we always say chest. And I always try to aim that higher chest right above kind of like the neck area. That's where when I'm working on my targeting and zeroing, that's what I try to focus on. That way, if it moves, you still have area. But just sit there and say, I understand the sentiment that you're saying is why do we have to kill this person? Just shoot his arm or his knee. I understand what you're trying to say. But in reality, the chances of you dropping that individual is it's probably less than 1% if you try to shoot someone's knee. You're trying to eliminate that threat. And the best way to eliminate that threat is to go with the largest mass of that body. That being said, I want to bring G in, and I don't know if you kind of caught up what's going on today, but the interesting thing about this, as we were talking earlier, is this was caught live. This church streams their services live on YouTube every week, and this was caught live. And as much as it could be utilized for the other side, we were talking about earlier with Budget and with Rob that the positive side of this video being out there is possibly maybe down the road, it could help other security teams and other churches evaluate this film and figure out what was done right, what was done wrong. What do you think about that? Is that something that we should look into is utilizing this video to help other people down the road?
So you ghosted me again by giving me a whole bunch of questions to answer.
I just asked you one. I only asked you one.
So, well, I'm going to give you multiple answers then.
All right, sounds good.
I mean, you're going to do what you're going to do, I guess. It's too soon. I don't like this word, but I'm going to use it. The optics of it, when you use something that's a tragedy, a murderer chose to use a firearm as a political statement. They did what they did as a political statement. They didn't accidentally do it. They weren't coerced into it. They intentionally did it. They intentionally planned everything about it. So there's optics to that. If you're going to use it as a training thing, you understand that there's consequences to it. And then I think there's something to the effect of if you choose reality to focus your training on, Rob can speak better to the words to use here, but I've heard it from this angle that if you microscopically watch what's already happened in real life, like actual reality, then you have a perception that that's how things are going to play out, and you get this like narrative of how things are. When you train to what's the word, like a abstract, then you're leaving yourself open. You haven't seen an actual narrative play out in your eyes, so your brain is more ready to adapt. And I'm no trainer, but I know there's better words to describe that aspect, that if you continually look at what's already happened, you create these scenarios, and it's like you're watching film strips, where if you just practice like a martial art or something, if you use that analogy, if you just watched karate movies and kung fu movies all the time and expected you were learning martial arts, it's different than learning kicks and sparring in real life. That's my input.
Yeah, Rob, you're gonna
Shows a gun. We're shooters. They're taking our words. And every time we give them that, we're giving them that. That's how they change society to get rid of guns. Let's take those words back intentionally. And I'm going to keep saying that. They're murderers. We're shooters.
absolutely. Rob, you want to jump in on it?
Yeah, there's absolutely some truth there, and I think that there's a balance, right? If you are watching one scenario for church shooting, and you're watching one scenario for something happening in a convenience store, and you're watching one scenario for a home invasion, then you run into this potential glitch that you're talking about, where you think the magic move is to, sidestep to the left and shoot 3 times, or you think the magic move is to stay seated and shoot from a seated position because that would have been better for that one scenario you're looking at. That being said, that's always the old the fear of like the person that does nothing but steel challenge, or the person that does nothing but this one IDPA stage, and they're always double tap, reload, double tap, and that's all they learn. That's their move, right? So you're learning this choreography, or you're choreographing your responses to this one very narrow slice. On the other hand, we can't just be completely vague, right? And we can't give equal amounts of attention to all things. So for example, let's look at distances at which one should practice defensive shooting. You can't give equal amount of time to, 1 yard and 2 yard and 3 yards and 4 yards, all the way out to, the longest shooting you can find an example for, right? So we have to look at the data. We have to look at these actual examples and say, okay, well, the vast majority, 80-something% of them have between 9 and 15 feet. So I probably need to be spending most of my training time between 9 and 15 feet. That doesn't mean it always has to be 12.3 feet, right? And that's the danger. And I think that's what you're talking about, is that if you watch this one over and over again, if this is the only church one you see, you start basing, books and curriculum, and it's like the Miami shootout, right? Like the Miami shootout has been beaten to death, resurrected, beaten to death again, resurrected. And every couple of years, it's cool to talk about the Miami shootout again. And yet it's an anomaly. It's a gross anomaly. And the lessons that are being learned largely are the lessons we should be learning are horrible cop actions, horrible cop tactics, horrible gun handling, and maybe a little bit about gear. And what happens is nobody wants to say it was horrible cop tactics, horrible gun handling, horrible cop shooting. So we're just going to blame the 9mm bullet, and let's just talk about that. Right. And the Tooler drill is another example, right? Tooler
I agree
drill
with Rob all the way up to the end there, but 9mm stuff is crazy. But everything else is
crazy. If you're carrying 1983 ammo, you're crazy right there. Okay,
you're crazy, man. You're crazy.
But point being, yeah, you can get too myopic, but at the same time, we need to look at these real world examples to put a perspective and put a context around that realm that we are going to train in. There have to be variables, and maybe that's the hard part. The hard part in training isn't deciding like what to train around. It's creating the variables, creating the necessity for information processing while I'm shooting my gun. Create the information processing necessity while I'm doing my reload. So I'm not just staring at my reload or bringing my gun in my face and staring at my reload. Instead, I'm watching what's going on around me while I'm fixing a malfunction or while I'm drawing my gun or whatever else. Like finding training environments where you can do reality-based live fire drills, that's the hard part. And that's what these videos should be empowering. That's what these videos should be telling us what kinds of variables to do.
Like I said, and that's kind of where I wanted to kind of focus the training side, because I got ripped in this group on Facebook, which is funny to begin with. It's kind of whatever, but saying that I hope that this can be used for good down the line. They're like, people died. This can't be. No, it can be used for good. It can be used to show other churches that if you don't have a security team, maybe you want to get one. Here is this. Yes, people died, but they minimized the threat in the way they did it. But let's look at this video and see, is there something that could have been done differently? Bud, I want to bring you back in and see, do you have anything you want to touch on that we've been talking about? Oh, you're muted.
The mute button, right?
There you go.
No, I think it's pretty much been talked out. I think the key things to take from this so far, with the information that we have anyway, it's better to have security in some form than not whether that be a dedicated security team or, at bare minimum, armed parishioners who may be able to do something. But I tend to think that trained people who are actually on the job looking for issues like this to and prepared to resolve them, that's their focus, is probably the best way to go. But that's, as Rob said, that's something that each individual community slash church slash group of parishioners, etc., they're going to have to make those decisions for themselves. But I think that it would behoove, in today's world, as sad as it is, it would behoove any organization that has public gatherings like this to have a security team of some sort, just in case. It's one of those things that, I mean, we all wear seatbelts, we all have fire extinguishers, and we all hope that we never have occasion to use either one. This is the same. It's no different. I think that's the main takeaway so far with the information we have. As time passes and more information comes out, I'm sure that there'll be more that we can learn from it.
Oh yeah, and this is gonna be something like you said, and we will learn from this for a while probably. And as bad as horrific as it sounds, the fact that this was caught live is something that it's new. It's new that we've had a church going on where a shooting happens, and we have live footage from within the church. This is something, if there's others out there, I haven't seen them. So this is kind of new and all of that. And so it's one of those things. I want to talk on a couple comments out there. Kevin's out there. He said that's why he hates the timers and training. And I get what you're saying. I will say this: the one thing about the timers is, unless you shoot competition a lot or you're around those timers a lot, if you get someone who has not been exposed to those timers very often, the beep alone is going to kind of freak them out. It's going to kind of get them on edge because now there's a time. And if nothing else, it's going to see how they handle pressure in the most minute way. If they can't handle a beep going off and a thing counting to 7 seconds, if they can't handle that kind of pressure, then they probably shouldn't be part of a security team that's going to have real pressure. So I don't mind the shot timers, not for time, just the fact that mentally, naturally, if you hear a beep and the clock's going off, you're going to start to rush as fast as you can. And sometimes we always say in the competition world, slow is smooth, smooth is fast. And in that situation, you want to be smooth instead of fast in this. We'll go down to where Star out there, she says, this is why she doesn't like drills. I like working scenarios. I love working scenarios, but I also love drills. I think they have to go hand in hand. You have to have the basic knowledge and the skill of handling. And I'm bringing Rob here in a minute because I'm sure you'll have something to say. But my experience and all of that with handling and training and all of that is you have to have a good mixture of drills and scenarios before you can start doing the scenario work of going into a shoot house and clearing rooms and CQB tactics and all of that. If you're not strong in your fundamental handling skills, which comes from training, the draw, the grit, everything about it. If you don't have that, then you don't need to be doing scenario work to begin with. Scenario work is the next step. You need to start out with a drill. So anyone out there that wants to do the scenario-based drills, that's great. But make sure your fundamental skills are solid, and that comes from doing just regular drills. Rob, we're kind of going off here, but this is a good kind of topic. Drills versus scenario work. What say you?
There's an order. I actually just did a live broadcast, and I think I did it on Armed American Radio tip of the week too, within the last couple of weeks, on what we call the skill development cycle. People can look that up. You have to learn how to do something first, probably in isolation, the more complex it is. Then you have to learn, or then you have to practice and develop that skill, which really is learning how to apply it. Then you get into a scenario situation, which is where you're evaluating your ability to apply the skill with that decision making I was talking about. So I think I'm with you for sure on the idea that you have to do something. The drills usually are what we're talking about to develop your ability to perform and then apply the skill in the first place before you have any business really jumping into a scenario, or what we then the next level would be a simulation where you have force on force and role players. A lot of people unfortunately, a lot of places that have the capacity for force on force or for laser training video simulators, they take people who haven't really practiced and they throw them into those things. And then they critique them like, oh, you did this wrong, or you did that wrong, or you missed, you did that. Well, what are you even evaluating? If you aren't their instructor, if you don't know what they're capable of, how can you really evaluate whether or not they applied their training properly? Like, for example, let's get back to what we were talking about, the church security team. They may have executed their plan 100% perfectly. They did exactly what their plan said they should do, and one of them died. So guess what? Maybe your plan sucked, and we have to be able to say that. And so that's really important. They may have done exactly what they were supposed to do. I got no critique for execution, but whoever scripted your response plan may have screwed you up, right? And on the other hand, maybe they did some things that were perfect, or maybe that one guy screwed something up, or maybe they didn't have a plan for this, right? Maybe they were executing a plan for, hey, we've all got guns. It's Texas. We'll be fine. And that's not a plan, by the way. So you said, well, with the parishioners, like they all got down. Were they told to do that? Was that intuitive?
Right.
Were they instructed? Did they execute a plan? We don't know, but that's a really big thing. And so getting back to that issue of I like scenarios, sure. But what are you evaluating in that scenario? If you haven't written a script in your head of what's supposed to happen when X, then Y, you can't evaluate Y if you haven't practiced to do Y. And if you don't know that Y is supposed to come with X, because the scenario is X and then you go. Right. It's not a drill where you blow the whistle and then you shoot a certain pattern of shots. Listen, man, I got to jump out, but I didn't want to blow off your invitation. This is important.
I appreciate it.
I'm glad you guys
we'll see you in a few weeks, man.
Facilitating. Yes, you will. See you, man.
Right.
Take care, Mike. You go.
I want to get out there. Jacob out there says, where's a good place to started for training? And he's in Southern Indiana. I mean, there's so many great instructors out there. Mike, you've done all the training. G, I've done an enormous amount of training, but I mean, there are people out there. Obviously, Rob is one with Personal Defense Network and ICE training. You look him up. Masad Ayub, Chris Costa. It really all depends on Reed Heinrich, James Yeager. I mean, the list, there is an enormous list of people. I would say that you could, I'll put it this way. If you could give a beginner like Jacob, he's 22 years old in Southern Indiana, you could tell him one piece of, whether it's a literature, a book, a video, one piece, one place to go for the beginning shooter, what would it be? And I think I know what you're going to go with, but I want to hear what you had to say.
That Panteo, are they still around? Go get a subscription to there and just start watching their online stuff. Keeping in mind those are supplements to courses, but if that wets your whistle, then start asking around and see what you can afford and what you can work towards.
Mike, what's up?
Take Kevin Attack Daddy's advice. Send him your address and he'll send you some PDN stuff, some videos, books, and
Rob's great
that Rob has produced. The guy that was just on here. He is a renowned self-defense trainer. So send Kevin Attack Daddy your info and he'll send you some stuff. He already said that out in the chat. So that's a good place to start. If you're wanting a place to start in person, well, a simple Google search for firearms trainers and your zip code should show you some companies that are around your area, some trainers that are around your area, and start going online, doing some research, read some reviews on these guys, what kind of stuff what the people who have taken their courses are saying about them. If there's more often than not, people are saying they're a joke, you probably don't want to go to them. If more often than not, people are saying that they do good work, might be worth checking out.
I honestly thought G might go with Front Sight, just the long history of Front Sight history.
Front Sight?
That's joking.
Southern Indiana, you should go to Tactical Response. He's right there.
No, I'm talking about just the literature and all of that.
Are you talking about Gun Sight?
No, I was talking about Front Sight. It was a joke. It's a joke.
I mean, Front Sight's fine, but I mean, whatever.
I've heard. You and I have had discussions about Front Sight in the past, and that's why I thought that was a joke. So yeah, don't worry about it. No, it's one of those things where James here,
whatever he was going to say would start with, whatever you do, don't carry 9mm.
Well, that too. Yeah. Jaeger is phenomenal. Go take fighting pistol. Fighting pistol would be a phenomenal class. He's in middle of Tennessee, mid-east Tennessee. So yeah, definitely go check out Jaeger over there in Tennessee. And so Indiana, that shouldn't be too far from you.
I forgot about Kentucky, but you still only got to drive across Kentucky, really.
Yeah, and Kentucky's not that thick of a state, so
Not that direction.
It should be pretty no problem. Yeah, but as far as going on to what we were talking about earlier in the training side versus drills and all of that. Yeah, Jacob, if you're interested, the best thing you can do is just do your research out there. Contact me, contact G, contact Mike. We've all done training. We've all been training different things. And it depends on what you want to be trained of. Is it just basic handling? Because that's something that's important, is the basic of handling a firearm. And there's really no reason to go take anything else until you get those basic fundamentals down. So
start taking whatever's free in your area. So if there's gun shops that offer classes, if there's ranges that offer classes, if there's IDPA or IPSC or SAS or one of the other competitions might have some sort of a thing. If they don't have one that you can find easily, contact all those different places and ask. Find out if a gun show has something going on. You can often take free CCW classes at a gun show. I encourage people to take a CCW class as often as possible. Every time you go to a class, you're going to get a different instructor, and you're going to get a different set of students. So you're going to get different questions. Even if you go to the same instructor, if you find an instructor who's willing and decent, and then you can just go and experience different classes with questions, it's incredible what you can learn. So start with what's free, absorb whatever it is you can find around you that you can get to and that is interesting. If you find an instructor who stands out, find out what else they offer and either start saving up or offer to do something, help them. You're active in these chats, so you understand the internet. Create a service or something that you can do to offer that person. And often you can audit the classes, you can help, you could be an assistant instructor and experience the classes and get paid or do it for free. Help other people see all those different questions and answers that come back. That's how you figure out what you're going to like to do.
Yep.
But you can't look at it. It's like saying, I want to play music, but I don't know if I should write music or if I should play an instrument or if I should build instruments or if I should sing or if I should make music videos. Well, you're giving us too much to work with. Start somewhere, see what's going on, and you'll see what the currents are. You'll pick a direction.
I just did a quick Google search for firearms training Indiana and got 4,280,000 results. So fantastic. You should be able to find something, man.
And I think he said up there, I scroll back up, and I think he said he only has an indoor range in the city. That's fine. If there's a range, there's an instructor of some kind. It might be a retired instructor. It might be someone that's not even an actual instructor, but was LEO for a long time or military. There is someone. If there's a gun range, that means that there was a need for a gun range. If there's a need for a gun range, it means there are people in that area that shoot. So someone out there will be willing and more than happy to help you get indoctrinated into what we're doing. Oh, Yuta, what's going on, man?
What's going on? Sorry about that. I just
hey, no worries.
Yeah, I just got home from taking the kids out and last night of Hanukkah, lighting the menorah and all that stuff.
Yeah, and I didn't want to bother you, but I figured everything that's happened, not just in the Texas shooting, but when the synagogue and everything that's happened, I want to kind of get your thoughts on one thing I want to bring into you, and I think I know where you're going to go with this, but I want to ask you this, and what's happened in the last couple of days, are you still, or were you ever, are you, first of all, let me ask you this, are you pro security teams in places of worship?
I'm pro anything that will defend people.
So the reason why I asked that is I was involved in a discussion in a Facebook group. It's kind of a gun control debate. So it's got people from both sides. And one was saying that how in the world, how is it, this just shows you right here that someone died. And even they had a security team, there people still died. So they're worthless and all that. I'm assuming that what you've been going through on the Jewish side of things with the synagogue, plus this today, this just kind of reinforces my beliefs that even though there was two people that died, including the shooter today in the Texas shooting, it saved how many other people?
Right.
And had there been a security team at the synagogue, how many people would have or could have been saved in that situation?
No, so 100%. So I'll tell you, we have a armed guard in front of my security in front of my synagogue every Sabbath.
Okay.
He has he usually doesn't carry an AR, but he's got a Glock on his hip, and then he has a Glock 17 in one of those micro conversions, CA, right? So look, he's got the guy's pounding right there like 50 rounds in seconds, right? But he's the first one that will tell you, I'm the first one to take a bullet, unless, of course, the guy happens to get past him. We have greeters in front of our synagogue, and if there's somebody that looks suspicious or we don't recognize, we will stop them, conduct a, I don't want to call it an interview, but like, hey, welcome to our community. What brings you here? You know, before we allow them into the synagogue. Now, let's say it slips through the cracks and the guy gets in. Well, I know where I sit. I sit strategically that we have two doors. That one door I'm literally 4 feet away from. The other door I'm probably about 8 feet away from. Both obviously, you know, adrenaline pumping, but both relatively easy shots if you can maintain your composure. So, you know, we have that on the inside, and there's a few other people in the synagogue that carry. But the security guard will tell you straight out. He's like, don't rely on me. I'm here as the first line of defense, but that means that I'm the first one to get shot and killed, making sure that you guys are safe. If that happens and someone happens to get into the synagogue, what are you going to do? And I'm good friends with our security guard. We have the same guy every week. And, you know, that's the mentality. So, yes, security teams are very important. Security guards are very important because it is excuse me, it is a deterrent. But that doesn't mean that you can't get your really bad apples, obviously, slipping through the cracks. And as we always say, you are your own first line of defense. Be your own guardian. Don't rely on anyone else but yourself.
Yeah, Mike, you raised your hand a second ago. You want to come on in?
No, I was just saying he's the speed bump. The thump.
Oh, yeah. He is.
That's all he is.
Right.
He's the speed bump to slow it down. That's all.
Yeah,
any uniform personnel at the door, that's all they are. That's all they've ever been. I used to be one, so I know. That's a speed bump.
You know, it's interesting because a lot of our churches in my hometown, they're modern churches, but there are a couple of kind of those old steeple churches. You know, they're still out in town, and there's the door. You open the door to the church, and it goes right into into the hall of worship. There's no outside greeting room. There's no it just one door, and the side doors, they go directly in. So what they've done on those is they've built outside of that, 15, 20 foot little meeting areas or waiting areas outside the main hall to where you can't walk directly into the congregation. You've got to at least go through another door before you get in there. And it's like I said, it's kind of like the security guard. Is it going to stop everybody? No. But if the security guard's out there or someone's in that waiting area and they notice someone that doesn't look familiar to them, especially in a small congregation or a small town where seemingly everyone kind of knows everyone in that congregation or synagogue or whatever, if someone doesn't look familiar to you or they don't look like they've been there before, you're not going to be rude. Just stop them. Hey, how you doing? Welcome. Let me get you some literature about our church. Do you know anybody here? Are you looking for anything in particular? If you just talk to the person, right, you should be able to get an idea of what their intent is, But
that's like I was saying, we have a greeter in front with the security guard, and the security guard is supposed to be there for a deterrent. And if someone comes up and you start questioning them and they seem a little iffy, we go, hey, buddy, and we'll call our security guard over, and then he takes over. And like he has no problem to, guy's a former veteran, I think NYPD, like 25 years. I mean, this guy is just no BS at all. And he has no problem just taking someone down for no other reason than, hey, you seem really like a bad dude. And until we can confirm that you're totally good, what we're not letting you in.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I think that the whole idea of this is it nice to have a security guard? It is. It's one more layer of deterrency that could help the greater good. But if we're not able or willing to take in that responsibility, like you said, and whatever we've always said, is we are our own first responders.
Mm-hmm.
If we're not able to do that, then it doesn't matter how many security guards you have out there. If someone wants to get in that room, chances are they're going to get in that room. It's what happens once they're in that room. Let's assume that all security measures have failed.
Right.
At this point, you're leaving your own life up to somebody else. And that's what I'm saying is I like the fact that there are churches out there that have these security teams. I think it's wonderful. It is a deterrent. It is a next step. But ultimately, and I'm not saying that I want it to be the Wild Wild West, but I would love to see everybody able or willing to carry inside their own church, to make sure to say, hey, if half of us are carrying, then the other half don't want to or can't or whatever. At least there's a chance then you have one person or you have two or three in a team. Because what if this guy today comes in and it's not by himself? What if they come in knowing there's 3 or 4 people on this team? They come in with 5 or 6 people because they just want to do evil. At that point, that team's worthless. So I'm not saying that this is I'm trying to get negative, but I like the fact we're talking about is, yes, it's nice to have security, but ultimately we're responsible for our own security. And if you're interested in that, and if you've never been a part of the gun community and you want to buy a gun and you want to get training, please do. There are people wherever you live, they're going to be willing to help you find the right firearm, get you the right training, get you the right fundamentals, and introduce you into being your own security guard.
I'll tell you right now, what I'm doing is I work with a FFL here in Texas, a good friend of mine. He's a Jewish guy too. Becoming a lot more Orthodox than he used to be. Let's put it that way. But still in between. And he's a great guy, awesome guy. And we are going to start rolling out in the next week an idea that any Dallas Jew that wants to purchase a firearm and begin to learn, we will allow them to buy the firearm at cost.
Oh, wow.
And not make a penny off them, because we want to arm as many Jews as possible. And we're also going to buy a bunch of guns to actually give away to people that can't afford them. Obviously, we're not talking about, freaking Combat Master or STI, but maybe some of your lower end Glocks or Smith and the shields and stuff like that.
Shield, the perfect exactly. Right. A can to get for $300, and the cost is probably $200. But I love that.
So we're gonna start. You're gonna start seeing me promote a lot of that. Hopefully in the next week, just because it's not just the Second Amendment. Unfortunately, and I actually have it's a huge piece coming out tomorrow, hopefully, that I wrote about it's time for Jews to stop being sheep and start embracing their heritage, their warrior heritage. And Judaism, we have a very strong warrior mindset. The problem is we've veered so far away from that. And my piece is twofold. It talks about becoming David versus Goliath again, but also stop relying solely on prayer. Now, I know that sounds incredibly controversial.
No, I see where you're going.
But go ahead. There's a lot of Jews who are like, no, we gotta pray, everything will be okay. No, that's not the way it works. And I don't know, Trey, I don't know if you saw that post I posted earlier on Facebook and Instagram about the man drowning.
I did sell that. Yes.
That's the mentality, is that, we pray to God, we're a man's I'll just say it quickly. A man's drowning, and he prays to God for, to rescue him. A boat comes by, the guy waves the boat off and says, "Hey, I'm waiting for God." Helicopter flies over him. waves the helicopter off and says, hey, I'm waiting for God. The guy drowns and he confronts God and says, hey, I prayed and prayed and prayed. How come you didn't rescue me? God's like, but I did. I did rescue you.
I sent you a boat. I sent you a helicopter. What the hell do you want me to do? You know?
But that's what I wrote. I said, God gave us the Second Amendment. We all believe that the Second Amendment's a God-given right. To say no, 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 all we need to do is pray is absurd. So it's going to be a very controversial piece.
I think history would show the fallacy in that line of thought.
100%. And in my article that's coming out tomorrow, that I don't take away not just the importance, but that it's a key. Prayer is needed. You 100% need to pray. But in Hebrew, we call it hishtadlus. It's your personal like effort, your personal effort into a situation. Okay. So you can pray and pray and pray, but what are you doing to make sure, a guy walks in and look, I'm sure we all saw that video from the church shooting today. Did you actually see the video?
I did, yeah.
Okay, hell, if a guy comes into my synagogue, I pray that I can take a guy out at 35, 40 feet with one shot. I mean, that was insane. Yeah. And that's what you pray for, but you prepare, what is it? If you want peace, prepare for war. I mean, it's literally that simple.
Yeah, that's we were talking about that earlier, and Rob was in here. And we were talking about training and all that stuff, and I'm not going to call you out, Jacob, but Jacob, he's new. He's 22 years old, new to the firearms, doesn't own a gun yet, but he's interested. He's been around for a little while, asking questions. He said, "We'll just shoot him in the knee or the arm." That obviously ignorance is sometimes not bliss. The idea of that is a perfect situation is at 30 feet shooting his kneecap to where, one, he has to stand trial, which I think is awesome justice. Two, we don't kill anyone, but it's just not, reality does not dictate that is worthwhile. You've got to go, and all that. But I think you're right. And the religion side of me, says that yes, and this is where I get into trouble with some of my friends is, my interpretation of the Bible and my relationship with God and Jesus is probably different than much of my friends. Okay. I am very much a self-reliant person, and I kind of feel the same way you do. Is pray. Absolutely. Have your conversation with your God and have your relationship through prayer. But to sit there and say, and you hear all the time is whatever God wants from me. Whatever God has in store for me, I'm okay with. I'm ready to go. Sorry, I'm not. I want to stay here with my family, enjoy my time on earth as long as I can. Yes, I will pray, but I'm going to prepare myself to stay on earth as long as I can. And at that point, then if I've done everything that I can do to prepare to survive, then if God calls me, I'm okay with that. But I'm not going to let him call me prematurely because I wasn't prepared. So is that kind of where you were going with that as well?
Yeah. I mean, I had a conversation with one of my rabbis, and, people in the gun community, people like us, we have that conversation of what happens if we have to take a human life.
Right.
Right. In a lot of religious circles, the idea of taking a human life is looked at murder. You're murdering a person. It's not looked at like, no, I'm defending myself. So I had this conversation with my rabbi, and I said, Rabbi, look, I pray 3 times a day that I never have to unholster my weapon for any reason. But I also pray that if I do, my aim is true. And he was like, explain that to me. I said, I don't want to kill somebody, but if I have to, I'm hoping I can get him. I'm hoping I can kill him before he kills anybody in the synagogue, in the congregation. And, you see, he became almost white as a ghost. And it's just, unfortunately, the problem is with a lot of people today, especially in the Jewish world, which is also what I talk about in my article, is that it's a mentality. I can offer free guns to everybody, right? I can pull an Oprah. But at the end of the day, exactly. You get one, exactly. You get a Glock. But at the end of the day, oh, hell, maybe I'll just do you guys get all high points, right? It's much cheaper.
Hey, They run. They're not beautiful, but they run.
They do.
I'm a high point proponent. I'm not saying that I love them, but I'm a proponent of what they are.
But yeah,
so right now you can get a Taurus G2C for $157 with a $25 mail-in rebate. So that kind of makes. I would rather go that route than a high point, but I digress.
Right. But my point is that, it's a mentality. And unfortunately, so many people out there don't have this mentality of, we want to just rely on the security guard. We just want to pray to God.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, I mean, Trey, you've known me now for what, probably a solid year. We met at SHOT Show last year.
We met at SHOT Show last year, yeah.
Right, and we've hit it off pretty well and became pretty close to the year. And you know me. I mean, I can sing from the top of the balcony, day in and day out about Jewish firearms ownership. But unfortunately, you don't see a change until something bad happens.
Right.
And
that's what typically happens in general in human nature, unfortunately. Snob did say, and I did see this, but the Tarrant County, which is where Fort Worth is, Tarrant County, just outside of Fort Worth, and being a DFW guy, this kind of in Utah lives in the Dallas area now, so this kind of where we know Tarrant County. But he said, "Today evil walked among us, but let me remind you, good people stood up and stopped it before it got worse." And that's the sheriff in Tarrant County. So yes, we've talked about this before. Evil's and G's being awfully quiet for G. So just jump in, bro. But evil's among us every single day, everywhere we are. We don't know when evil is going to show its ugly face. We don't know if it will show its ugly face. But the fact that evil is always out there, it's kind of what you're saying is I'm going to prepare myself personally to the best of my ability to survive, protect myself, my family, and anyone else I can protect along the way that can't defend themselves. But I tell you what, interesting for me is you'll have conversations even within, religious circles, and not just Judaism, but, Christianity is, even though you could have a Baptist in Arkansas and a Baptist in Pennsylvania that have two completely different frame of thoughts, the Baptist in Arkansas is going to say, hey, thou shalt not kill. Yep. Unless they're trying to kill me. And then you have other people that within Christianity are going to be strict to that is thou shalt not kill. So I do not believe that firearms, blah, blah, blah. The interesting thing is what you hear about in politics, that the religious right, well, it's not like the left are atheists. They just have different interpretations of what's being said. They interpret the Bible differently. They interpret the Constitution differently and all of that. But for me, go ahead.
I don't know if you said it on purpose or I'm not going to correct you, so to speak, because it is your
go ahead.
But interestingly, you said thou shalt not kill, right?
That's right, but it's not what it says.
Right. According to the actual Hebrew, right? The word lo tirtzach, right? That's the actual etched in the 10 Commandments, one of them.
Absolutely.
And the actual translation of that is do not murder.
That's correct. That was where I was going to go with this,
right,
because they interpret to say kill. That's not what it says
That's
at all.
Not what it says. Exactly. And I've had this conversation with so many people, because a lot of, Christian friends of mine, like, well, yeah, you can't kill. I'm like, well, you're eating a steak right now. You killed an animal. I said, oh, look, you just stepped on the ant. You killed an ant. He goes, well, it's different with humans. I'm like, is it? Does it really say thou shalt not kill? I said, because the Bible, what you're saying is the Bible itself says if someone comes to kill you, and I'm talking about the Old Testament. When I talk, for anyone who's following, just to give a little heads up to your everyone who's, when me being an Orthodox Jew, when I talk about the Bible, I'm talking about the Old Testament that we follow. There's a part in the Bible when it says if someone comes to kill you, you can kill them first. You are allowed to defend yourself. So, this idea of thou shalt not kill is so wrong in its interpretation. The real translation is thou shalt not murder. So that's just. I mean, like I said, I don't know. I don't know if you were going in that direction, but I apologize.
Yeah. Well, no, you're fine. You're fine. I love it. That's exactly what this is all about. And the next part of this was going as far as, and I'll add on to what you were saying is it only applies to humans. Did Noah just rescue humans? Did he just have humans on the ark, or did he have a male and female of every species on earth? If God only wanted humans to worry about law of nature, then he only would have saved the humans. No, he saved everything. He saved every species under the sun of earth. So it's not just about humans, it's a living thing, and anything, but it's a murder, and there are people I don't hunt, and it's not because of religious reasons. It has nothing to do with me caring about animals. I choose not to hunt because I don't want to wake up at dark 30 to stand in water to shoot a fucking duck. Okay, I'm not gonna lie. That being said, the people that sit there and say, well, hunting's murder, I don't. If it's done for any other reason but then to control population of deer, or to people actually rely, they use every single part of the animal that they that hide, the meat, all that. That's not. If you just go out there and say, I hate that deer because it's eating up my plants, boom, well, that's a whole different story. But there's a whole, there's always ways to justify things however you want to say it. But to me, the biggest thing is it comes down to being prepared to defend yourself, your family, and then you put on the back, I'll also protect anyone else that needs protecting that can't or won't protect themselves. And that's the thing is, let me ask you this, Mike, I'll bring you in here. I hear people out there, and I cringe when I hear it, but I'm sure you've heard it too. Well, if I'm out in public and I know this person's anti-gun, I'm not going to help him out, because he's against this gun anyways. I've heard that so many times there and say, look, if you're going to carry and you're going to take the responsibility of carrying, then it doesn't matter if you like that person or not, if you've gotten into an argument with them the day before at school or whatever. If you're going to take the responsibility, then you're there to protect anyone and everyone. Now, that being said, I'll say this. When it comes to church and the interpretations, I don't want to get too religious here, but it comes down to the interpretations of what the Bible says, what everything is going on. When it comes to interpretations of thou shalt not kill, which is what the English-speaking world kind of generically says. You talk about this, that, and the other. When it comes down to that, and we hear the different interpretations of the Second Amendment. Okay, we always hear, well, Second Amendment is just archaic. It was written 200-something years ago. So people are obviously reading these old documents, whether it's the Old Testament, the Ten Commandments, or the Constitution. When it comes down, there's a question here somewhere, I promise you, Mike. When you read these things, at what point do people just need to quit reading and just overthinking everything? It's a natural thing. We talk about this all the time. It's a God-given right. It's not a U.S. right. Every person in the world, whether you live in a country that does not believe in firearms or not, has the right to defend themselves. So for people are going to come back and say that churches now, because it has proven that security teams can't stop violence. And you know that's going to come. The rhetoric's going to come. There was a security team of this church and people still died. You know that's going to happen. And people are going to come and say, well, we should ban firearms in churches now because they obviously don't work. People still die. What do we say to the people in the next year before the 2020 election? What do we say when people combat this and say no more guns in church? Because I've already seen rhetoric on different Facebook groups that say, even in Texas, are now saying they need to take the law in Texas that allows people to carry on church grounds and revoke it. Have you heard about this yet, Ruta? Are you hearing this in Dallas? Because it's all over Facebook.
So
they're saying revoke the law that happened like 20 years ago or something. Was it 20 years ago?
No, I mean, I don't know. I haven't heard that, but following the what was the other church shooting 2 years ago in Texas? The Corpus Christi.
Mike, what was it? Southland? So
Greg Abbott passed a law that gave you permission to carry in churches, synagogues, places of worship. So that's officially law. It used to be that, you technically weren't allowed unless you got permission, but now it's full on, you're allowed to. So in Texas, I haven't been seeing any of that. So
I'm assuming you carry when you go to your mosque and your synagogue, you carry.
Yeah.
Mike, are you allowed to carry if you go to church, are you allowed to carry where you are in your state?
In Ohio,
up to the individual church
from the pastor or
okay, it's up to the individual church
carry in a place of worship.
Okay.
Where I go,
so,
we carry.
So it's not like it's banned by the state. It's up to the individual church whether they want to allow you or not. Okay. Correct. Okay. And here I would say that I'm not going to say most because I don't know that, but yeah, I would say that there is a very good chance in where I live in Arkansas that someone's probably at least half of the congregation's probably got access to a firearm and all that. Here, I'm trying to get back into some of these comments. G, you've been awfully quiet. Do you have anything you want to comment on we've been talking about, or I'm not even sure if you're still around?
Yeah, I'm sitting here, but you guys are going all over the place. If this is,
we are. This was just a live thing. We just kind of just decided to start talking. So yeah.
Yeah, I hear you. And it's Sunday, so I'm not like digging into every single thing, that you guys have to cover. But my things, in general, would be that this was a murder. Keep calling it a shooting as much as you want. That's 100% playing into the narrative over there. It's a murder.
Right.
That guy's a murderer. He chose a firearm instead of a grenade, instead of an arson, instead of all the other things, poisons, because of all the situation. So we're playing into that. But you're talking about faith. So if you're having a conversation with me, you're going to have a conversation about 2A. So if you're trying to have a conversation with another person about Second Amendment and their faith is going to be brought up into it, it's their faith, man. That's one of the first things you got when your awareness of you as an individual and you're dealing with the world. So you guys can say all you want how people should and how you do, but it's that whole idea of going 50% of the way. You can explain all you want, but if you don't go 50% empathize and understand what it's like to have faith and go into a place unarmed because you have faith and you can't understand that and you're going to tell people that they're wrong, you're not having a conversation. You're telling them your opinion. So I'm just going to bring up, you guys are saying stuff that's not incorrect, but you're not going to get through to someone who has faith. And if you really want to get through to someone who has faith, I suggest bring someone on who understands what it's like to submit and have faith, because you guys are talking about interpretations of the Bible. What you're actually hinting around at is an individual's faith in all the different things we've been talking about that have great significance, and you can't change someone's faith. You can offer your opinion, and you can be passionate, but you guys are being aggressive, and I don't have a real big opinion one way or the other, but you guys are telling people, you guys are suggesting that other people's opinion or perspective is...
I never said that.
I know you didn't say it in so many words. You asked me for my opinion, and I'm giving it to you.
Sure.
You guys are talking about a very tender, sensitive subject that gets to the root of a person's essence and telling them that their faith is incorrect and that their interpretation of faith...
I never said that, G. I'm not going to sit there. If you're going to get mad at me for saying that, I said I said that I believe that way. However you want to believe is how you believe. If someone
picking on how the words I choose to express my perspective here. My perspective is you guys are being aggressive in general.
So you can come after me, but I can't say anything to you. Is what you're saying?
Interrupted me is all. I'm trying to get my point across, and you've stopped me from being able to get my point across by being upset about a specific word I use. And I'm not talking to you, and I'm not mad. I'm offering a perspective. And when you, as a host, interrupt and stop someone from offering their perspective and then suggest that it's persecuting you, you've diverted the subject. So
you said me 3 times.
Think about faith.
I think, and tell me if I'm wrong here, G, that what you're saying boils down to something that I was planning to mention, but I kind of got sidetracked with the question Ghost asked me, is that it's going to boil down to, for whatever reason the person decides it, the individual's decision as to whether or not they choose to carry and be responsible for their own safety, or leave it in the hands of God, or leave it in the hands of the security, or leave it in the hands of anybody else. That's going to be the individual's choice and the individual's decision. And I think for whatever reason they decided, you know, and let's remember here too, people, that there are other faiths out there than the faiths of the book, you know, Christianity, Judaism, Islam, etc. Some may not be commanded to turn the other cheek. Some may, in fact, be commanded to carry weapons. So faith isn't necessarily an indicator of pacifism. I think it may be a contributor, but I think that it is it's not necessarily in being a religious person doesn't necessarily mean being pacifist.
No, it doesn't. And the whole point of faith is each individual person's faith means something different. You know, whether you have faith in your family, you have faith. If you're talking about religion, if you're talking about strictly about religion, your faith is your own personal relationship with your God and your Savior. In the Christian world, it's my faith in God and my faith that Jesus died on a cross for my sins. He is my Savior. I have been saved. And you talk to Judaism, you talk to Islam, everyone has their things, but each individual's person's faith, that's your own personal relationship. What I say and what I believe doesn't mean that I wish that upon everybody. Yeah. And that's what I'm saying is for me is because I don't want to put my faith. I don't truly believe that if it's my time for God, then I'm okay with that. I have the faith that I'm going to go to heaven and all of that. I'm okay with dying. No, I'm saying I'm being selfish. I want to be on this earth with my family and my friends as long as I can. And if I can do something about that to keep myself on this earth as long as I can, then I'm going to be selfish in that sense. And I'm going to do that. But by no means am I saying that everyone has to feel that way. I don't think Yuta was saying that. I don't think everyone's saying that, you know, screw your faith, get a gun. Whatever you honestly think, if your faith is this, then I'm okay with that.
Good. I didn't say the opposite of that. So you're misunderstanding me if you that's the way you interpreted what I said.
Yeah, and I see exactly, and Mike, and that's what I said earlier. I don't really want to get on religion because this is a whole nother discussion, and we're trying to talk about maybe talking about what happens in a public place, whether it's a church, whether it's at a gas station, whether it's anywhere. It's one of those that we can learn from this. And like I said, I don't know if this video, it's available somewhere. I don't know if it's still on the actual church's YouTube page. I don't know what happens with an ongoing investigation. The video's out there somewhere. And I'm hoping that maybe down the line, we talked about this in the very beginning with Mike and I, that they can utilize this video to learn from it. There are some positives that happen from this. There are some negatives that happen during this. And so maybe hopefully this video for people that are at other churches or office buildings or schools, whatever the situation, that have a security team will be able to take this video footage, because to my knowledge, it's the first indoor, like, gathering a lot of people at a church type setting that there was live video or a video footage of a murder. So I'm hoping maybe we can learn from this, or something out there that we can get going and educate people on what to do. I think it's interesting. We talked about this twice already. Yuta's new to this, but you know, if you've seen the video, I don't know, have you seen the video yet, Yuta?
Oh yeah.
Okay, so it seemed like all the people they just dropped. No one bull rushed the shooter, and the question came up a couple different times. Is I wonder, and I want to ask you because you have a security guard and all that, but are the people at your synagogue, are they instructed if there's a shooting what they should do? So they get down, or has there been that discussion within your own synagogue?
Unfortunately, not.
Okay.
They, like many Jewish or organizations out there, their big thing is, we have a security guard, and that's about it. You know, we've had a security expert come in and talk to the few people who are interested in security, but out of the 8 people that were at that meeting, only 2 people carry, me and a buddy of mine. So, you know, there is no clear instruction on what to do. Now, again, like I said earlier, my synagogue, there's a front door, You walk through the front door, and there's a small atrium, and then there's 2 entrances into the synagogue itself, into the sanctuary. From my seat, I'm between 4 to 8 feet away from those 2 entrances into the actual sanctuary, and I can see the front door from my seat. So I know, I mean, obviously, you get the muscle memory, and also you build scenarios in your head of how it would go down. I know we've all done that before. And so I know, depending on which door an assailant would come through, how to put him down as quick as possible. But like I said, there's no clear instructions on what to do.
Okay. Mike, in your church, I know you said that there are people that carry 2 questions. First of all, is there a quote unquote security team? The second question is have the congregation, have they ever had the discussion that you know of what should happen if there is an active shooter?
Where I worship, if someone were foolish enough to come in and attack that place, they would very quickly stop. I mean, really, it's that's all I'll say about the security arrangements there, is that it would be bad incredibly foolish and incredibly short action.
Now, have you guys as a church or as a community had the conversation of what if something does happen, the people that are not armed or whatever, what their responsibilities are, what they're supposed to do?
Everybody's armed.
There you go. Okay.
I don't know
that.
All these.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think of, because it's interesting, because in that video, like I said, it was very eerie to see automatically they just fall. No one was trying to go anywhere. They weren't rushing. It was like they were told, if anything should ever happen, your first job, if you're not part of this team or whatever, is to just drop. And it was interesting because it looked like they'd been told that. G, I want to talk to you. Have you ever been around a church or been to a church or anything that they've had the conversation as to what people are supposed to do in an active shooter scenario?
No, but my question would be, what's the odds and the percentages? Like, does the place have, wherever it happens to be, do they have like tornado warnings? What else would be like imminent? Like other weather maybe? Or maybe something like when there's flooding, we're going to close because the creek will be full, like you can't get here. Like fire, how often does someplace have a fire drill? And then look at the numbers, the actual math on like how often something burns down compared to how often this stuff happens. Again, they're creating a narrative. If you're talking to me, we're talking 2A. The gun prohibitionists, are creating a narrative that there's an epidemic. There is no epidemic. We're safer here than we've ever been. We're getting safer and safer. The proliferation of CCW pretty much ended all this kind of stuff. They desperately have to claim onto all of these things to act like it's an issue. So have I ever been to a place of any type that they prepare for this kind of business, a murderer with a firearm? Only if they're not completely oblivious to the perception that they're creating, only if they're completely oblivious to the actual numbers, and only if they're completely manipulated and not interested in not being manipulated by those who have our attention, occasionally, and who claim that there's this epidemic. Until somebody can prove to me that there's an epidemic, I think that we're playing into the hands of the sky has fallen, and here's the thing of the day, here's the epidemic of the day or the thing of the day, send us money and all this. Go ahead and train, be prepared, be self-sufficient. There's nothing wrong with that. I hope you have discussions about fire and when the hot water bursts and who's going to show up when the roof bursts because of rain or something. Like, these are all issues that happen way more often than a murderer who politically decides to pick up that particular item and not a lighter or poison or something else.
Okay. I don't know what to say to that. So yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I agree. It was a question that, unfortunately, there must be a lot of people in this country that have been swayed to think that there's an epidemic, because even in my hometown of 8,000, 10,000 people, most churches have taken upon themselves to have a security team. Not the fact that they think anything's going to happen. I think that it's just being prepared. They're trying to take initiative in their own hands, saying, don't think anything's going to ever happen, but if it does, it'd be nice to know that we can handle and protect everyone else. So, you know, I don't know if that's an epidemic or not, but I do understand, and I do agree with the fact that if people are going to have the discussion on firearms in churches and having these different security teams, then I don't see that that's a bad thing. I think that it's at least a step in the right direction that says, look, we, regardless if they have fallen to the narrative that there's an epidemic or not is irrelevant to me. The fact that they're saying, if something ever happens, we're going to have people there to react, just like they have a fire drill, just like they have a tornado drill for most churches and schools. Why not have an active shooter drill? If you're saying that fires don't happen, that we shouldn't have fire drills because fires hardly ever happen, or we shouldn't do, I'm not saying UG, I'm saying in general, people say should do tornado drills because tornadoes don't ever hit in this place. If you're still doing fire drills, you're doing tornado drills, you're doing all these other drills, then why not have active shooter drills? And I think that's a wonderful thing. That being said, I understand what you're saying as far as politically, but I'm not bringing this up in a political world.
Not politically. Realistically, how often does a person decide to pick up something and go in? If we could hear it every single weekend, and that would be 52 times a year, if we heard it every single weekend. Now, right. How often does a school bus take out a whole bunch of people in a school bus because there's no seatbelts in it? How often does a bus, like a regular old bus of something going to a civic or a religious organization, get stuck on a train track or fall off a thing? Like, we don't have unnecessary drills for things. So I'm not just talking politically, I'm talking real life. Do we want to make our kids paranoid, scared of something that never happens because the gun prohibitionists are trying to convince the world that we're the worst country ever, that freedom is not good? Or are we going to give it the treatment it's due and go, okay, I understand, maybe talk about it once in a while, but to have a sign on the thing, especially if it's going to have the word shooter on it. I'm a shooter. Are you going to say mass murderer? You know, the real actual thing, like, here's the event of a mass murderer. Well, that's the actual real life definition, right? So what's a mass murderer going to do? Are they going to have a Bic lighter, a keyboard? Are they going to start a blitz mob or whatever that's called when they flash mob in front of your organization on a Sunday morning or Saturday morning? Are they going to use spray paint? Like, how are you going to react to all of these threats? Fine. But if you're going to put a sign on the wall that has the word shooter, it better be signing up for the weekend shooting team.
I don't know. To me, it's not about the odds. It's about the stakes. It's that simple. Literally, it's not about the odds. Look, there's been 13, just over Hanukkah alone in the last 8 days, there have been 13 anti-Semitic attacks ranging from shooting to, maybe in the last 2 weeks, I apologize, from shootings to stabbings to numerous beatings. It's not about the odds, it's about the stakes.
That brings up a good point, because not all, that's not happening at, I'm trying to pick like an Episcopalian. It's not happening at the super churches where they have to bring 3 armored cars in on weekends. If you've got a religion that gets persecuted by countries and regions of the world, I don't think that applies anymore. That's totally different.
No, I agree, G, but at the same time, it's not about the odds of whether or not it's going to happen. Do you have health insurance?
No, I'm not suggesting don't do it. I'm saying, do we want to have a sign in the hallway underneath the fire warning sign, because fires happen all the time, that says shooter, active shooter? That's,
no. I'm not talking about that.
Did anyone even mention that? Having a sign?
You said have it. I guess you guys do. When you say have active shooter drills, to me that says to all the little kids out there, you know what's almost as bad as a fire, and what's going to happen almost as bad as a fire, we have to teach you about it, is this. And it just doesn't happen that often. It's playing into the gun prohibitionist illusion that this is something you actually have to worry about. So I understand what you're saying. It's super critical, but kids need to just be able to, what if a stray dog gets in there that's got rabies? What if a raccoon gets in there? They just need to have their wits about them. Sure, have like something goes crazy type of scenarios. Here's what everybody does. You run outside and you go over here. If it's a different type of scenario, I guess I'm rallying against saying active shooters are okay because they're so horrible when they happen in these situations. Now it's okay to be with the gun prohibitionists and call all shooters murderers potentially because the risk is so great, or the odds are so important.
I don't think anyone is talking about bringing children into active shooter scenarios. I mean, I know my synagogue has talked about having an active shooter scenario after hours when no one's there with a security team. I think that's what Trey and I are mainly talking about. We're not talking about on the on the Sabbath at 10:30 in the morning when we're smack in the middle of reading from the Torah. Like, we're just going to stop everything and have a shooting, an active shooter drill. I mean, I don't think that's what we're talking about. We're just talking about.
You just use an extreme there so that you could make your point and allow me the same. I had to use extremes. You guys are talking about active shooters over, and I'm trying to say, imagine if there was a sign on the wall that said, here's what to do for active shooters, and we're going to put it in the government authorized place where it means a kid has to be able to see it at eye level. So that's where I'm taking it, that same concept of exaggerating my point. So to get the point across to you guys, that's all.
I'm not understanding. Maybe, and I'm being honest, like, I'm not understanding what your point is.
The more, what's the word? The more credential we give to the concept of an active shooter being a threat is playing into gun prohibitionists. If you guys want
normalizes it
for us to be aware, it's good for us to be strong and resistant. Great. Start focusing on shooters. I'm saying we're going with the gun prohibitionists on it.
Are you saying, and please tell me if I'm wrong here, you're saying that if we hold drills for this sorts of thing, it normalizes it and it gives credence to what the anti-gunners are saying, that these are horrible problems that we need to be.
Thank you for summarizing it. All I'm going to say is the lie is the anti-gun prohibition.
No, exactly. And exactly. I understand exactly what you're saying and yet I see your point, and I don't disagree with your point with the fact that if we're changing everything that we're doing, that acknowledges, quote unquote, acknowledges that we acknowledge that there's a problem. And I'm not saying that. If I come across saying that I believe that,
you try to explain it to you.
I don't. What I'm trying to say is I enjoy the fact that there are people that are, regardless of if it's an epidemic or not, people have acknowledged the fact that there is a 0.00001% that someone walks into my place of worship and shoots it up. I'm saying that I enjoy that there is a fact that there is people that have said, not on my watch. And I think that is a beautiful thing.
Let me
it's not on my watch. That's what I'm saying is I like the fact that people are willing to do that. And if they're going to continue to do that, then all I did was pose a question is, do you think that the people today in that church, they all got down almost in unison? It was almost like, boom. And then maybe that has been a natural reaction, but they weren't scurrying around. They weren't trying to do it. They just got down. And I didn't know if that was something that possibly was told to them and said, look, we've got people here going to take care of this. If something happens, just get down. That's all you got to do. And that's kind of where it all started, is not doing drills necessarily, but just saying, hey, just letting you guys know that every Sunday at 10 o'clock service, we're going to have people here that are going to be armed and all that. If something should happen, we don't have to do a drill. We don't have to get everyone scared. Just saying, if something should happen, just everyone get down. And that's it. That's not, I don't think that's acknowledging an epidemic. I think it's just saying, hey, just get down. That's kind of what my point was.
So, and I agree with that, Trey. So that's why I'm a little confused. I don't believe there's an epidemic. I think it's the opposite. Right. Despite the many mass shootings that we have had, it's still on a downward spiral. It's less frequent than before. Yeah. So I'm more with Trey that, again, it's not
there's no sides here. You guys are just explaining it over and over. So let me try to summarize it and answer Snob's point out there. He said something about how many times does a school or church have a fire versus how often do they have fire drills? The fire, right, is the culprit there, is the bad guy. And no one says arsonist. They say fire. So if there's a fire, here's what we do. Because what really matters is nobody dies in the fire. Where it starts, if there's some political thing about cigarettes or lighters or vape, and they're out to get arsonists. No one is putting on that fire sign, active arsonist alert drills, or what to do for, because if I'm looking at a fire escape sign, right? It's not a drill, it's a sign. Don't get caught up in the verbiage. So if we're going to put up signs and stuff, if we're going to say we're going to have a response team, my only point, I don't care at all that you guys want to do it. I'm not saying don't do this. I'm saying think about what you're calling it. Call it an emergency team. Calling it a response team to an active shooter gives precedence to the whole thing that we all agree is a politically motivated strategy recently to suggest that somehow crimes with firearms are on the upswing, and they're not. So if you want to have, if you want to have resourceful, useful members of a congregation that are responsible for just being aware, then call it the emergency team. That's my only suggestion. My only point to this whole thing is that every time we say we're planning for an active shooter, we're given ammunition, pun intended, because words matter. We're giving ammunition to the gun prohibitionists who eat it up. It's free advertising for them. Every time we say it, we further acknowledge that there's shooters out there trying to get us. When there are politically, motivated murderers who use a particular implement, knowing what they're going to get in response from the media. We all know that. That's all I'm saying is let's call them emergency teams. Let's call it a team that responds to emergencies and not give credit to this narrative. That's all.
I see what you're saying, and I'm not trying. I don't think any of us are trying to. The word active shooter, it's an actual training class. I mean, there's training classes built around active shooters. It's not like I'm coming up with this terminology and saying, "Here's what." I see what you're saying, though. I'm not trying to argue or anything like that. It's just for me, it was a question about training and all of that. That being said, if you take it on the two-way side of things, yeah, anytime that we talk about something like this, it could be potentially damaging to the two-way side of things, because I think that talking about something like this today, my entire intent, it went down 17,000 different rabbit holes. Mike's been with me since the beginning of it, but the original intent I want to talk about was actually having a video for the first time and utilizing it for future training, because for the first time, I think that we have emergency teams, whatever we would like to call them, now have reference of good things that happen, bad things that could happen. Hey, watch how they did this. We can learn from this. Hey, we've never had an emergency team for whatever reason. Maybe we could try, and we've got some footage now that we could maybe learn something. It is going to be interesting. Like Rob said earlier, it's going to be interesting in months down the line. Probably forget about it, but on the training side of things, how will this video be dissected? How will it be critiqued? How will it be utilized by other trainers and all of that down the line? I think that there is an opportunity here to see how it went down. There were some bad things that happened within this as far as mechanics and tactics and all of that, but there were some good things. And yes, any loss of life is bad. Any loss of life is terrible, but evil was minimized today. And the beautiful thing is it was minimized. And going back to what we were saying earlier is I got accused of something in a Facebook group because I said an armed citizen. They were quick to remind me he was part of a security team. It doesn't matter if he's part of a security team or not. He's a citizen. He's armed. A good guy stopped a bad guy with a gun. I don't care what his role was. I don't care what his title was. It makes no difference to me whatsoever, is the fact that a citizen in that church was armed when he didn't really necessarily have to be necessarily, and stopped a threat that, yes, had a fatality, but it stopped potentially 100, however many people were in that congregation. It could have stopped many, many more. So the fact that the visual of this is wonderful in my eyes, because it's just another example. And Budge, I'm sure this will be on the right of the people eventually, but another good guy with a gun is never a bad thing. It's never, I don't think the great thing about this is even in the most left-leaning publications that I've seen today, not one person is talking about this in a negative light. Even the left-leaning publications are talking about the evil was minimized. They might not have wanted to give credit to a citizen with a firearm, but they'll say the threat was minimized. That's a positive thing when we have even the left-leaning publications saying that, whether they didn't call it by name, but a good guy with a gun minimized evil in a church. So that was kind of where I wanted to go with this originally. Once again, when you start going live to get people in here, you go down a lot of different rabbit holes. But I think that I understand what you're saying, G, about terminology is very important, how you want to phrase things and terminology. Ultimately, it comes down to this. This is my stance. I am going to be prepared as much as possible. I'm going to prepare anyone that I have contact with and I have influence over to be as prepared as they can to take the precautions to be ready for any given time. Same thing when I go to a restaurant. I'm probably going to try to pick a corner booth with my back to the wall and I can see the entire restaurant. I can see the front door, who's coming in, who's coming out, who's coming in and out of the kitchen. That's not saying that I have let myself to believe there's an epidemic. I'm saying that I'm being prepared and I'm doing everything that I can to be ready for this. So that's how I say it. Is I hope that everyone out there takes it upon themselves to carry. Everyone knows it's about me. My main mission with Ghost Tactical and my project is concealed carry. It is my main, 90% of what I do is I try to educate and try to promote concealed carry. And the fact that today an armed citizen stopped the threat of evil or minimized the threat of evil is a beautiful thing. Obviously, we don't want any violence whatsoever, but the fact that it's going to happen and we took it upon ourselves as our culture took care of our own today, and I think that's a beautiful thing. I think Rich is getting ready to go on, or he might have already gone on. I'm trying to look out here and see if there's anything. Anybody, Mike, G, you have anything you want to add or talk about right now before we start kind of closing the doors and heading on home?
I'm good.
Okay, Mike, I'll start with you. You want to plug what you got going on and maybe your next show?
Those of you who don't know, I'm Mike from Budget Guns and Gear Reviews here on YouTube. Budget Guns and Gear on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, gun channels, GunTube, Gun Streamer, EIEIO. I do a show every Friday night at 11:30 p.m. Eastern here on YouTube called The Right of the People, where we take things like this, Second Amendment related news and current events, and talk about it amongst the panel and with the chat, along with some other things like self-defense shout-outs and our newest segment, Moron of the Week. So tune in on Friday at 11:30 to catch that.
Thanks for going on, bud. Yuta, what you got going on? I know you said you got an article coming out tomorrow. Where's that going to be at?
It's going to be on the Daily Wire.
Awesome. You write for them? Or is this kind of an individual project?
An opinion piece, but
okay.
I got a couple connections there, so I reached out to my buddy. I'm like, hey, man, I got something. He read it. He's like, it's going up tomorrow. So, I have that. Finished writing my next book. I'm looking for SHOT Show is going to be big for me. I'm going to try to find sponsors again for it. Need about $5,000 this time. I'm about to release a new shirt that's so awesome. Can
you give us a hint?
Oh, hell yeah. This is my Boogaloo shirt.
Oh, that might fund the book for you, man.
I'm praying to God it will, because the shirt is laugh out loud funny. So it's good.
Are they going to find it on your website, or where do they find that at?
The website's thepewpewjew.com. You can follow me there. You can follow me on Facebook, Yehuda Reamer, or my main focus is Instagram, and that's at thepewpewjew.
I was trying to get into a toothpaste war with you this weekend, and I forgot that it was still Hanukkah, so I hope I didn't. No,
are you kidding me? It was great.
I saw your one about the scope, and I said, "Oh, I've got to go do something with aim or something."
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I was thinking about putting Preparation H on top of mine for the next one, but I didn't have any in the house, So
I hear you. G, what you got going on? Anything that you want to bring up or plug?
Thanks for the link, and thanks for doing the show. It sounds like everybody's that's going to SHOT could be interesting to get a chat together and talk
Yes.
about the different like projects we've got going into 2020. Maybe either on air or off air or both, do some like strategy on how we're planning to approach funding 2020. And then that way everybody who's interested, you know, from like AmCon or something, whoever's motivated could be aware of what other people are doing. That way, if you're having a conversation with somebody and you find out something that might work for somebody else, we're all aware of what each other's projects are. If anybody's got time, that might be an interesting chat. We've got a couple of weeks before Shotsville.
I would love to. I was actually thinking about maybe not this Tuesday, but the next Tuesday is getting a SHOT Show kind of a preview, bringing in people that I know that are going to go and talk about, you know, because everyone's going to SHOT Show and they have their own individual projects of what they're working on. You know, I've got my thing, you just got yours, you know, G's got his own idea of what they're looking for out of SHOT. And I think it's interesting because I think that most people think that everyone just goes to get booth reviews. I might only take 1 or 2 booth reviews. I didn't take one last year, not one booth review. I might take 1 or 2 this year, but I'm not going there for that. I'm going there for other reasons and other projects of mine. So yeah, I would love to hear what everyone's kind of reasoning with their projects for SHOT is. I think that'd be a phenomenal chat with bringing different people in from maybe a print media, like maybe a John Crump to bring in, you know, what's someone who's a more of a print media guy do versus maybe Sedini, who's doing Walk the Talk as a nonprofit. You've got different aspects of SHOT Show. I think that would be a phenomenal show. So, yeah, I might do that this Tuesday instead of next Tuesday. But if y'all are all up for it, then I don't know what you guys got going on Tuesday night at 7 Central, but we can do that if you want.
I have 3 kids, so I don't want to put the bet on 3.
New Year's Eve, you're still doing a show?
Yeah, I was going to go out of town. I was supposed to be going out of town this week. My wife and daughter and I were going to go down to Gulf Shores and spend a couple days just to getting away. But that's not going to happen. Can't leave my dad right now. It's, you know, so I don't want to leave him alone. So we're going to stick around. So I'll be here New Year's Eve and we'll probably do a show. And if anyone's interested, then let me know, you know. Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, thanks for guys for coming in. I know that Yankees probably going to be, he's already been live. Someone said that Tim's been live. I think Rich White Unloaded Media is doing their stuff right now. So go check them out. You've got Pancakes doing the closer tonight. So go check him out. Go check out Mike. Go check out Yuta. Go check out G. And we'll see you guys soon. And once again, guys, do everything you can to prepare yourself and you know, don't let yourself be a victim. You are your own first responder. So we'll see you soon. Go check out Instagram. We're doing Carry365. Use the hashtag Carry365, and we'll see you out there soon. Peace. Semper Fi.